RPGs, PS1. Let's talk about those. Obvious one to start off with. Final Fantasy VII. I sort of played it first time. I think it was like 2001, so it was very very late on that. But for those who don't know, Final Fantasy VII, it's an adventure over 3 discs. Yes, PlayStation had discs. Um, and yeah, it's about just about battling fantasy creatures, and but it's set in a sort of set in its own world, very modern world. Um, Sort of evolved past the sword and sorcery sort of thing, and sort of more futuristic world that it's in. Although there's definitely a technological inequality between the main city of Midgar and the towns, and you go on a quest to save the very small world that you're on. It is small. It's um, it's like just like a collection of islands. Like Just Cause 2 had probably a bigger map than Final Fantasy 7. But anyway, yeah. So what's yeah? It has a story. I'm sure many of you know it already. But yeah, it's about just a guy with a very mysterious past, going up against sort of kind of his old mentor, stopping the old mentor from sort of destroying the world through his own craziness. I'm probably explaining the story badly, but yeah. The point of the game, you go through the game, you go through turn-based battles. So you just so you just select through menus and and get your character. You sort of tell your character what to do. He does it, um, and yeah. What was really interesting about it was something called the materia system. You have weapons and armor with slots on it. You can put little things called materia onto them, and you sort of level up your little glowing marble, and that gets you new magic. As well as getting new weapons and stuff, and accessories, and that side of things was a lot of fun. Um, yeah, that was a really really clever way of doing battles. But yeah, so after Final Fantasy VII, I was like, I want to check out some of the earlier ones now. I noticed Final Fantasy 4 and 5 were released on the PS1 as Final Fantasy. It wasn't Origins. That was kind of the other Final Fantasy. I think it was just called Final Fantasy Anthology. That had Final Fantasy 4. In my opinion, that has the best of the stories of all the Final Fantasy games I've played. Uh, to two brothers. One is where you control one. The other is your evil brother. They're sort of half human, half Lunarian. Um, and yeah, really, it's the evil brother that allows us to be controlled by some big Lunarian that can destroy the world, and it's but the story's actually a lot more clever than I'm making it out to be, and yeah, and the battles are very basic. You just sort of level up your character the same way you level up a Pokemon, and they learn new things as they go. So a bit basic, but allows for interesting strategy in battles. Um, and yeah, yeah, very good games, and that's more the sort of the sword and sorcery thing. Sort of it's your typical RPG thing, that you enemy tries to get your crystals, you're trying to stop them from getting the crystals, and yeah, it works the same way. As you instruct your character to cast magic or attack certain things in the turn-based way. So yeah, that's Final Fantasy 4. Final Fantasy 5 was sort of the same thing again, but this time it just kept to 4 characters in battle at the same time. But it was, well, 5 characters, but one gets replaced. But anyway, that's has an interesting job system where you select what unlike it's not the materia, it's the job. You select them, you give them a role, and over time they learn new abilities. From being part of that role. So you can have a black mage who you can turn your character into black mage. They previously might have been a monk, so you can have a black mage that can kick. So combinations were very interesting, I think Final Fantasy V was my favourite, just because of that job system. Final Fantasy IV had the best story, those are the three that I played. But now I'm going to move on to the big one. It's not even that big a game, but for me, it was one game that I still consider to be one of the best games I've ever played. It even made Watch Mojo's top 10 hardest PS1 games. I think it was the hardest. It is, of course, Alundra. So that's sort of a 2.5D game without turn-based battles. There is real combat, but it's sort of 2.5D, so you can sort of jump upwards and fight things in real time. That side of things is very basic, but the story to that game was incredible. It's about you're sort of a dream walker. So basically, it was Inception before Inception, but in sort of a fantasy world. So yeah, you enter dreams and cure people of their bad dreams. But the problem is that the bad dreams are a result of them praying to a dark god without the town even realizing that's what they're doing. So that was Alundra. So incredible story. What I like, one thing that really made me laugh a bit was when one person tried to defend the Final Fantasy games. I said, I don't like the grinding. It doesn't feel natural. I mean, I'm sure the enemy's just going to wait for me to level up my character. And he was like, oh, but you can make yourself so powerful. But it's like he totally missed the point that that the whole level grinding just ruins the experience a little bit. So Alundra, you level up your health and magic stats by progressing through the game. It's not about level grinding, which was really good, and it was just incredible story. For 2.5D, good graphics. Very difficult. The jumping was really the difficult part. You really have to perfect your jumping in this 2.5D environment, which is a challenge, and that's why it has such a reputation for being so difficult. And also, some of the puzzles really make you think. An ice sliding puzzle. If you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. There's an ice sliding puzzle which can take forever. But if you leave a room and then re-enter, the whole thing resets itself. That's a bit confusing. But Alundra. That's a game I still consider to be one of the best games I've ever played. And so that's some RPGs. I don't think there's much else to talk about with PS1. But I think next time I'll talk a little bit about sports games, because it'll go somewhere with that. Because that'll go to another area of games. So I'm going to do sports games next time. There'll be some interesting picks in there. So thank you very much for watching. I've not done one of these in a while because I was feeling a bit ill last week. That's my gaming history. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you for sports games next time.